Welcome everybody to the Senior Community Resources in Concord presentation. We are here today to provide valuable information on the resources available to you in the Concord area. We hope that through the information you gather today, you will be better equipped to navigate the stages of aging. My name is Laura Erb, and I am the Program Coordinator for the Cooperative Elder Services Adult Day Health Program, located right here in Concord, 3 minutes away actually. I am here today at the Concord Council on Aging, along with the representatives from 4 types of senior care organizations in the area. We have today with us Urvi Argawella, the geriatric and public health nurse of the Concord Council on Aging. Then we have Michelle Holmberg, the program director at Cooperative Elder Services right here in Concord, and Jen Quinn, the owner and president of Comfort Care, and Beth Wynn and Jane Taylor, the directors of sales and marketing at Newbury Court. So thank you everybody for being here. Thank you. We will have each presenter take about 15 minutes or so to tell us about their type of service provided. At the end of the 4 presentations, we will then open it up to any questions that you may have. And there are notepads if you wanted to jot anything down right over here on the table for you. So here to tell us what the Council on Aging can do for you is, first I'd like to welcome Urvi Argawella.
So I am the geriatric and public health nurse for the town of Concord, and one of my biggest roles here is my office is here at the Council on Aging, and a little bit about the Council on Aging. We're a division of the municipal government, and our aim is to improve and promote the quality of life for Concord residents over the age of 60 by helping them maintain dignity, self-esteem, and personal independence, and allowing them to remain full participants in the life of the community. So we offer many programs here. First, I'm going to talk about the importance of social and recreational programs. This is a staggering number here. An estimated 8 million adults over the age of 50 are affected by isolation. This problem of isolation can impair mental performance, it can compromise your immune system, and it can increase the risk of vascular, inflammatory, and heart disease. Many of the activities traditionally associated with senior centers, such as fitness classes, parties, dances, conversation groups, and congregate meals, are also used to draw isolated seniors into the centers to help them find companionship and support. So we provide a wide variety of social and recreational events and activities. We offer classes. We have drawing classes, chess, acrylics, and creative writing. We do educational lectures. One of the many hats that I wear here is doing wellness programming. So myself, along with the programming people here, we do art appreciation, music appreciation, health, and wellness. And we have games. So we do game time, bridge, poker, cribbage, bingo, ping pong on Fridays. You always know when ping pong's going on. It's Friday and it's really loud in that room over there. Social groups, we have a men's coffee morning, and then we have coffee and conversation. We also do international current events, handicrafts, quilting, and a book group. And it's really wonderful when I see a group of people. You know, my office is just around the corner here, and I see people sitting out in the leisure area, and they've got their knitting going on, or their stitching going on, and they're just chatting, and it's just nice that we can provide that for our seniors, you know, to prevent the isolation, because as we know, it can lead to many physical problems as well as emotional problems. We also do trips here. We go to museums, beach, the opera, and our big day of the week is Wednesday, because we have our weekly luncheon, and we also sometimes have special events. And recently we just had the singing trooper here, and I know everybody loves him, so that was a great opportunity for folks to come out and listen to him. We also offer fitness, including yoga, tai chi, strength and flex, and aerobics. And we do send out a monthly newsletter, and it's got the schedule of all the programming that we have going on for that month, listed in there with times and location and how to sign up and all that. So. And one of the other important things that we have here at the Council on Aging is our outreach and social services support. So we have 1 part-time social services coordinator and 2 full-time outreach coordinators, which is amazing that we are able to offer that service to Concord seniors. So we do, our outreach does a myriad of different things to help our seniors, starting with information and referrals, crisis counseling, advocacy, case management for those that might need a little extra attention. And we can also refer you to bereavement and caregiver support groups. And then also we can help with access to state and federal benefits, such as fuel assistance, nutritional assistance, which is SNAP, also known as the old food stamps program, Medicare and Medicaid questions, because we know everybody has them. Nobody's figured that one out yet, but we have a Shine counselor that can help you with that. And also affordable housing, which is a big one. And then the other piece of what we do here is my position, which is health and wellness. So every Wednesday we have a blood pressure clinic, and it's great to see the same seniors being proactive and come back week after week and really, look after their blood pressure and kind of see what the trends are and make sure that they're going in the right direction. And it's also nice to just, to see trend week to week, because you go to see your doctor maybe once or twice a year and you can't see maybe those little spikes in the blood pressure. So we're very happy to be able to offer that. We also have a nurse that comes in every month to do a diabetic clinic. And these folks that come out are mostly not necessarily diagnosed with diabetes, but are kind of on the borderline, and they just want to keep an eye on their sugar. So we're very pleased to be able to offer that once a month. We also have podiatry clinic, and we have 2 different podiatrists that come in, and they alternate months. And so that's every month, so they skip, they go every other month, but we have a podiatrist here every month. And in the fall, we do our big event, which is the flu clinic, and we always have a great outcome for that. And then, of course, also the educational lectures. So we've got a few coming up. Actually, one of our physicians here in town, Dr. Susanna Bedell, is going to be coming in August, and she's going to show, she's going to demonstrate, she's going to do a live demonstration of how to make an entree salad. And she's going to teach you how to make your own vinaigrette so that you can have a healthy, filling lunch and not worry about the sodium and the preservatives and all the crazy stuff that's in food these days. We also have a UTI prevention seminar coming up in July, as well as a stroke prevention and treatment educational offering in July. And also another part of my job is, we're very lucky that we're able to do this as well, but I get referrals from outreach, and some seniors, they might need a little bit of extra help with their medical conditions that are happening. Maybe you've just had some sort of cardiac event and you've come home with this pile of medication and you're not really sure where to start or what to do, and maybe your support system at home isn't the greatest. Well, I can come out to your house and kind of help you along the way, just to get you through that little rough patch and do what I can do to help. So we're usually the first point of contact also for transitions in life. For example, if you're moving to an assisted living, you might want to know, who's a good mover, around here, or who can help me put my AC in the summer. And we have a list of all those referrals. We have a folder, it's in the main office. And so you can just come up to any of us and just say, hey, look, I need somebody to put my AC in, it's getting hot. And the handyman charges a small fee for it, and he or she will come in, put it in for you in the beginning of the summer and take it out for you at the end of the summer for a small fee. And I think it's just good to know that we can refer well-trusted people to you. So we do the vetting, we do the reference checks, and we make sure that everything is up to par with the person, so you're not just pulling somebody from the side of the street and having them help you put your AC, and you're inviting somebody into your home, so you want to make sure that that person is trustworthy. So a little bit what I want to talk about as well, just real quick, is just what the difference is between a COA and adult day health, and I know that we're going to get into that more, but I just want to kind of let you know a little bit of what the difference is. In order to attend the COA, you really need to be fully independent. You need to be independent, you need to be able to toilet yourself, and by independent, okay, you can't drive, and that's fine, many of our seniors don't drive, but we have a van that can bring you in. But I guess I mean as far as taking care of yourself, you need to be able to take care of yourself. Now, if you need a little bit, you or your loved one needs a little bit more help, you can talk to somebody in outreach and we can make a referral, for a day program and, kind of make things easier on you at home. So that's really why we're here. Some of the additional services we offer is, like I said, we have van transportation, and we ask for a suggested donation of $2, which is not much, if you have no other option, if you don't have family around that can drive you, or maybe you don't want to ask your family to drive you into the COA because you don't want to, they have their lives, and so it's a good way to maintain your independence. And we can also take you to doctor's offices as well, to doctor's appointments. You just call the desk and talk to Lori and she can sign you up. We also have a durable medical equipment loan program. And this is great because we have basically, our basement is full of different durable medical equipment. We have canes, we have walkers, we have commodes, pretty much anything that you can think of that you might need maybe just for a short-term period. Your loved ones just come home from the hospital and maybe you don't want to invest in purchasing durable medical equipment. You can give us a call and, say, hey, I need a walker. Do you have one that I can borrow? And usually we have a walker, so we'll say, yeah, sure. So we just take your name and your information and you can use the walker, and we just ask that you return it when you're done. But I think that that's a great service as well. So, volunteers. We rely on the commitment of more than 100 volunteers, which I think is incredible. That's a really, really great number of volunteers. And research shows that volunteering can have both mental and physical benefits. It gives you a sense of purpose. It gives, you wake up in the morning and you won't believe how many times I hear like, oh, I wake up in the morning because I know I have to go volunteer at the COA today. And it just gives you a sense of purpose, which everybody needs, no matter how old you are. So if you ever are looking for an opportunity to volunteer, please reach out. Any of us can help you with that. We have a volunteer coordinator as well that can help you along the way. So just a little quote here. Older volunteers report lower mortality rates, lower rates of depression, and fewer physical limitations and higher levels of well-being. So we do encourage our seniors to, go out and about and find purpose, anything. It could be anything. You could be a greeter, or you can help with lunches, whatever you feel comfortable with. So, all right, thank you.
My name is Michelle Holmberg, Program Director at Cooperative Elder Services in Concord. CESI, as we call ourselves, we are a nonprofit adult day health center. We've been around for almost 40 years at this point, so thank you for allowing me to come and speak with you today. What are we talking about when we're talking about adult day health? I know there's a lot of questions around it. What we're referring to in particular is professional care setting. It's a professional healthcare setting. And I always say that there's three main branches to it. We have our comprehensive skilled care, so I'm talking about nursing services on the one hand. I'm talking about our therapeutic activities program throughout the day, so our engaging programming. And then the third piece of it is the service coordination. And I'll go into more specifics about those three branches in just a few moments. So why am I in front of you today? Why are the rest of my panelists in front of you today? One of the things we know is that over the next 20 years, the population 65 plus is going to increase by 80%. So services like an adult day health center, again, like what our other panelists are speaking to today, are really going to become more prevalent because the population that's going to need them is only going to increase. And adult day healths in particular, what the research tells us is that folks that are utilizing ADH services are actually going to spend around 10 grand less per year than other long-term care costs. What we're also seeing with people who use adult day health is a decrease in readmission to hospital. So what can often happen is somebody is admitted to a hospital for one reason or another, and then a short time later after discharge, they may end up back in the hospital, either for the same issue or a related issue. Attendance at an adult day health center has been shown to decrease this. And as Irby was mentioning earlier, we know that there are some serious repercussions to social isolation certainly in terms of your mental health, but a lot of people don't realize in terms of your physical health as well, your ability to fight off illness decreases if you're more socially isolated. And so this is just up here quickly just to show you that if adult day health is an appropriate fit for yourself or for a loved one, it can also be really cost beneficial. It can be an appropriate financial fit for your family. Next slide. People ask us all the time, why not just a social day program? What's the difference between adult day health and a supportive day program? We have additional requirements and regulations beyond a supportive day program. Specifically, we're going to be providing comprehensive skilled care. And so what that means is we have our nursing services. We always have an RN on staff throughout the day. But we're also receiving physical therapy on site. There's the oversight of an occupational therapist, and oftentimes there may be a speech therapist who's working with our folks coming in. And so this is just a quick overview so that you can see there is a lot of overlap between adult day health and a social day program. But again, you can see that there's also many more regulations and requirements that we need to hit as an ADH beyond that. So I'm going to talk about those three arms of what we do, the nursing piece, the therapeutic activities, and then the service coordination. But first I'm going to focus again more on the reasons why we're not just like a social day program. And it really starts with the comprehensive skilled care. So as I mentioned, nursing. So people ask, what does that include? That's medication administration if somebody needs it. It's monthly assessments, quarterly evaluations. It's really day-to-day eyesight on yourself or a loved one. We also have the physical therapy right on site, and the benefit of that is obviously, trying to run around to all the different medical appointments can be really difficult. We understand that, so the benefit to having physical therapy right on site can't be overlooked. We also have an occupational therapist who reviews all of our therapeutic activities programming, and I'll talk about what that means a little later, but in short, that's somebody taking a look, making sure that we're hitting the key senses for somebody, and that our programming is as robust as it possibly could be. And I just want to highlight that last bullet point there. It really is an interdisciplinary team. I'll come back to the activities programming in just a moment and the service coordination as well, but we'll continue on. Why adult day health? It really is community-based care for folks who have dementia. What we know is that nationally about half of all people attending an ADH will have some form of dementia, such as Alzheimer's. I can tell you that locally, participants joining us at Cooperative Elder Services, around 70 to 75% on any given day of folks joining us will have some form of dementia. And what that feeds into is programming that often has memory care specifically built into it. So that is programming that takes into account that a lot of the folks joining us may have some cognitive impairments and or dementia, and so we're really tailoring that activity programming throughout the day to meet specific needs of the individuals coming in. The other thing that ADH does is provide management for chronic disease. So we all know, I'm sure everybody sitting here in the room, often if somebody's grappling with one issue, it may be comorbid with another. And for our folks coming in with dementia, that can often mean other issues such as diabetes or stroke. So you can imagine somebody coming into a place like Adult Day Health and they're spending the full day with us. It provides about 6 hours of oversight, 6 hours of eyes on you, on a loved one, which can help with prevention of more issues or early identification of something, and that will allow us to intervene and hopefully cut something off before it becomes a crisis or a much larger issue than it needs to be. We also exist because of caregiver burnout. Caregiver respite is a huge part of what we do with Adult Day Health. It is so critical and important that there are caregivers out in the community, but I don't have to tell anybody here today, and certainly not the panelists joining me, that caregiver burnout is a real thing. And what we're referring to there is somebody who may be taking care of a family member, a loved one, a friend, and that feeling of exhaustion, mental, physical exhaustion, and they're stressed, and at times it can feel hopeless. So we're here to give them some respite throughout the day. The other thing that we know is that caregiver burnout can really vary depending on who you are as an individual and your relationship to the person that you're taking care of. It's going to allow our caregivers to continue to work, which people need to do obviously for financial reasons, but certainly for self-identification reasons as well. And then to maintain that relationship, to first and foremost continue to be a mother and a daughter, or a husband and a wife. Getting that respite and making sure that burnout isn't interfering with that relationship is critical. So coming back, as I mentioned, we were talking about the nursing piece of things in that skilled care. I want to talk about our Therapeutic Activities program. We are not just here to pass the day with somebody. We really want to make the time meaningful. And so that first and foremost means that we are creating programming that always keeps in mind that we are working with adults. We want to make adult programming that is interesting and valuable and educational for the folks coming in. To that end, though, we are always going to keep in mind that we want it to be failure-free. So a lot of folks coming in with dementia or other issues, they have favorite pastimes and hobbies as the rest of us do. So what can we do to modify those particular activities so that people can still come in and enjoy them and feel successful and engaging in them? And so to that end, all of our programming really does keep in mind the varied cognitive and physical abilities of the people coming in. We, to that next bullet point is every month we are reviewing what does our activity programming look like, what changes have we seen in our folks, and what do we need to do to modify or alter what we're doing so that people can be more successful. A great example of this, in Concord we have a lovely patio, and we have a lot of people who loved gardening. I know it's a favorite activity of mine. We have raised beds and we have raised planters. So if it's something that somebody can't get down on the ground and dig around in anymore, they still have that ability to dig in the dirt and get things in soil, which is so important. It's a loved activity, and it's really easy for us to modify so they can do that. One point I want to, before I move away from therapeutic activities, people will ask us, well, I don't understand how the nursing piece fits in throughout the day. You know, how can you have your programming and have people seeing nursing services if they need to? It's simple. We are co-located. We are all in the same spot. So as our programming is going on, the nurses are popping in and out as needed to connect with people throughout the day. They're talking to them before an activity begins so that they don't lose any time in it. They're connecting with them towards the end of the day or maybe towards the end of lunchtime. So everybody's really adept at working together and making it work so that both things can coexist. Our service coordination team, they're not just doing intakes and admissions, which of course is important. They're the ones that you're going to speak to first when you're calling to ask about what is adult day health and what does it look like. They're doing a number of things. This can include caregiver resources. So at a place like Cooperative Elder Services, you might be speaking with our service coordinator and wondering, you know, is there a way to make other services fit throughout the day? And our service coordinator will be connecting you again with all of my lovely panelists up here with me today, because we realize we are one piece in a continuum of care, and we want to make sure that caregivers understand what your options are and how to connect with them appropriately. We're also working on that coordination with these other services. So a lot of times it's a warm handoff, whether it's to a physician's office, another organization or group within the area. And then finally, community resources. So a great example of this is Cooperative Elder Services works closely with the COA in Concord on a caregiver support group. So that's just one example in which we make sure that we're getting ourselves outside of our doors and reaching people out in the community where you are. So what does this look like? What does an ADH day look like? So very quickly, people will join us first thing in the morning for breakfast. And then we're very quickly moving into our first programming of the day. We have 3 blocks of activities throughout the day, but during each time we always have at least 2 options going on, sometimes 3. And the reason for this is, again, we are working with adults, and what you want to do one day is not what you want to do the next day. We're all human beings, right? And we have varied moods and opinions, and so we want to offer people choice and the option to figure out what they want to be doing that day. So that's true whether it's our exercise program, Some of our activity programs, we're going to vary and make sure that they're reaching out to different interests at different times. So whether that's having a current events group going on in one room and then an art program down at the other end, or we might have a basketball game going on in one room, but a book discussion going on in another room, we're always going to make sure we're reaching different people and their interests. And after lunch, we're then stretching. I always say we all need to wake up a little bit mentally and physically after we sit and have lunch for an hour. And then it's the last set of activities for the day before people head out. And that's really a good 6 hours or so people are here with us. And I just want to note, as I'm giving you this schedule, there's always an asterisk, isn't there? There's a lot of flexibility in what we do throughout the day. Again, we understand these are adults that we're working with, and they may say, these aren't the exact things I want to be doing. We're listening to that, we're responding to it, and we'll find other opportunities for people to feel engaged. For instance, we have a gentleman recently who has taken up writing, and so there are times he doesn't want to be in the group, and so then he was feeling stuck. I don't want to do this or that, I want to do this separate thing. So our team put a table off to the side for him, and he's got a notepad and he's got writing instruments, and now when he feels like opting out to do his writing, he has his own space to do so. We're happy to find that flexibility because the therapeutic activities we have planned for the day may not be the best activities for him, but they're still going to be engaging for him, trying to meet his specific needs. Question that comes up a lot: what if I don't think my loved one will like the activities, or I'm looking at this schedule and I don't know that I like all these activities? We ask people to come in first for a tour. What you're reading in terms of a list of activities on a piece of paper may not resonate with you, but once you see it happening, you can really get the sense for how engaging it is. It can also be a lot for people to settle into a new program. So, if it's a loved one especially that you're bringing them in and telling them about the day, and they're saying to you, I don't know if this is the right fit for me, encourage people, it takes some time. Every new thing takes some time to get used to. And then again, flexibility within the programming. One thing that drives us nuts is we hear down the line, well, my loved one didn't really like the activities, or, their favorite hobby was never on the list, so I don't know that this is going to work. Let us know, communicate with the staff, because again, there's flexibility within the day, there's flexibility within the month and the week, and we want to know because we can be adapting things. So to summarize, adult day health is not daycare. We are working with adults, we are creating engaging, flexible programming. We're not here to just pass the day. We're here to have that medical oversight, and then also that therapeutic activities and the service coordination for folks. Again, that skilled care, it's in a supportive and engaging environment, so it doesn't also feel quite as intimidating. It doesn't feel like somebody's just sitting around with a nurse watching them all day. And we always, always, always encourage coming in for a tour, asking questions, coming back and asking more questions. That's what we're here for. We're happy to speak to it. We love talking about what we do. Quick note of references, if anybody has any questions following this about what I was speaking to. And last slide is me just saying thank you. And if anybody has any questions following this presentation about adult day health in general or cooperative elder services in particular, please don't hesitate to reach out. I really do love talking about what this is and what I do all day. So thank you for your time.
My name is Jen Quinn, and I own a home care agency, and I first just want to talk about why live at home? So people will say, well, what is home care? And then I'm going to get into what is non-medical home care, because usually that term throws people completely off. So you'll be able to leave and you'll have a good understanding about what it is. So why live at home is the big question. So looking at some of these statistics, and I can certainly provide the references, is the follow-up is nearly 90% of seniors want to stay in their own home as they age. And I would think that most people in the audience would not disagree with that number, but even more so that 82% of seniors would prefer to stay at home even if they need some extra help or ongoing care. Because sometimes that's the kind of trade-off. Well, I'd like to stay at home, but I don't want anybody here. So this is why I'm going to go through and give you some explanations of why it's a positive thing, and for many other people, it is going to be the way that they're going to be able to remain in their home and age in place. So home is overall just a really good place to be. Would everybody agree? Okay, see, I feel like I need some audience interaction. Okay, so why would somebody want to live at home? Well, a few of the obvious reasons. It's familiar, it's a place that you typically love. You're near people that you're close with, and it really helps you still feel that sense of independence. You know, it doesn't mean that when you have home care that someone needs to be there all the time, and we're going to talk about the different levels and the different options that you have as far as services. But it helps people feel more independent and gives them purpose, gives them meaning, and helps them stay connected to the things that have kept them going for a very long time. So I also want to mention, you know, where is home? So where can home be? Home can actually be in any place. So that includes a long-time home, which could be single-family, multi-family, could be a mobile home, could be a condo, an apartment. You know, people get very specific about, you know, where is home. But the other places that are included as home, as people age and their needs change, it could be independent living, it could be assisted living. We even will help in home care with people that are in a memory unit. So you might say, well, that doesn't make sense. If somebody's not living in a traditional home, then why would there be home care services in place? The answer is that sometimes people need a little bit extra help on top of what is available to them. And really what it is where does someone want to age in place? And the home really is where the heart is. It's not necessarily in a traditional home that someone maybe has been in for 40, 50 years. So that takes a little getting used to. So if you're going to make the jump to home care, there are definitely some things that you want to consider. And so I jotted down a bunch of them, and I know if I'm going to go off on a tangent, I'll try not to, with stories. But, you know, these are the big questions when you're considering staying at home, and, you know, what are going to be some of the obstacles that you might face? How are you going to make that possible? One of them is just how easy is it to maintain the home? Sometimes people can't wait to get out of a traditional home, to not have to cut the grass and do things. I see nodding heads as people are now in grass cutting season. But there's also, you know, do you have friends and family around? If you do have friends and family around, maybe you want to stay there. You know, so that's a consideration. How can you stay close in proximity to people? Also, how do you get out and around? You know, so these are all the different things that you're considering. Can I stay at home? And a lot of these different questions you have, you might say, well, if I can't drive, then I can't stay in my home. But you'll see how home care and having those non-medical services are ways to make that happen. So some other considerations would be, you know, how is my health? How is the health of the person that's living in the home with me? So I'm just trying to put a little bug in your ear in terms of if you're considering home care, these are the types of questions that probably will cross your mind, and if they don't, they should. The other is, you know, do I need someone here with me? But also the big one is financial. A lot of times it comes down to different financial choices that people will have in determining whether or not home care is a reasonable fit and is going to make sense for someone short-term or long-term. So it really comes down to choices, and we have wonderful choices here. And what you're going to find out as it's summarized at the end is that many of these choices that you do have with senior care is that they can overlap and that they can coexist and they can actually be happening at the same time. So it's not you need to pick A, B, C, or D sitting up here today. You're going to learn at the end how it can all kind of come together and overlap. And that's why it's like I'm forgetting the we're all in this together. Remember High School Musical? Every time I say that, I want to break out in song. If anybody has, you know, nieces, nephews, grandchildren that were big into the High School Musical, I promise you I will not sing. So let's go into what does in-home, non-medical home care mean. So it basically means we can come in and we can help you in your home, wherever that home physically is taking place. And we are non-medical, meaning we're not going to be coming in and doing skilled nursing or skilled services for you. But some of the services it does include would be some of the traditional things like companionship. I'll tell you, someone will say, well, we're going to hire someone just to keep somebody company. We all know that socializing and having a connection to somebody and having warm interactions is one of the most critical things that you need for you to be able to maintain a healthy life, having connections with people. But then it comes down to safety. Sometimes you need to make sure that you have someone in the home because it's going to be some safety supervision to make sure that there aren't any falls, or to make sure that someone is even eating properly, has groceries that are in the refrigerator that aren't expired. That all kind of falls under safety supervision because it's about the safety and the well-being of the person. Some of these things I would like to have: assistance with laundry, shopping, transportation potentially for my kids, and meals. All of these types of things all fall under the umbrella of what a non-medical home care companion caregiver could be providing. But it also then will switch into and overlaps with some personal care. And we're very good at making people feel comfortable with some things that are potentially very uncomfortable topics, such as personal care. When my father was sick 18 years ago, he didn't have any reservations about having me help him, do some personal care. Some people would have those reservations, maybe with their daughter, with their wife, with their brother or sister. So we are able to come in and in a very dignified manner, because we develop a sense of trust and a bond with somebody prior to helping them in the shower, we are able to make someone feel comfortable in accepting that type of care. And that could include bathing, getting dressed, typically toileting, incontinence as life goes on. Sometimes you're losing some of those abilities. So we're there to be able to help people be as independent as possible without taking someone's independence away. So there's a real fine balance. As you look through this list, you think, well, then what does a person have to do left for themselves? Well, we're constantly looking for that balance of pushing people to do as much as you can, but being there for the help that is needed. And it's very individualized. Obviously, it's not one size fits all. We do care plans, and we'll get into that in a little bit. We do care plans based on what the individual needs, and it certainly is not the one size fits all. As what has been mentioned by Michelle in regards to dementia care, that's another big piece that I know my home care agency has a specialization with, but many do, because that is something that is so prevalent and really needs to be a part of the care. Because if it's coming hand in hand with other challenges, we need to be able to know how to use those best communication practices. So the dementia care is often just a part of the care, and sometimes it just boils down to good communication, being polite and being respectful, and a lot of times that helps significantly with the proper best practices for dementia care. So with all these different services that are there, from companionship really through end of life, we're working collaboratively often with other folks at rehabs, if someone is going in and out of rehabs, with VNA services. So we're collaborating with folks that are working and doing skilled while we're there. Now, we're not able to do the skilled, but we're usually in there for the long haul, as I call it. So let me give you an example. One of our clients goes into the hospital, goes into rehab for a bit. Our job is to coordinate then with the rehab to make sure that what they can do back in their home is going to be appropriate, and we're going to be able to step in and do what it is needed to be able to support them. But then VNA will come out too, because they need the skilled help. So it might be a nurse, it might be PT, it might be some OT, whatever's determined upon the discharge. But we're there listening, we're there listening and observing. So on those days that maybe skilled isn't coming in, then we're able to do the exercises and be able to maintain and help them stay strong. End of life, meaning through hospice. We're often there through end of life, not giving the skilled care with hospice, but there in conjunction with them. So, we're a piece of the puzzle kind of throughout the whole continuum of care, whether it be from someone just providing companionship or someone who is at end of life. So we really can be there through many different phases. One other thing that you might note is that sometimes people have people living with them. So here's a really great term to learn and to know is live-in care. So we have folks that go in and they deliver services hourly. So let's say someone has somebody for 4 hours a day. We also have folks that go in and live in, meaning that room and board is going to be provided by the client, and that our caregivers are going to be going in and assisting them throughout the course of the day. But it really means that someone needs to be getting a good chunk of sleep during the night, meaning someone is sleeping through the night because, well, we want our caregivers to be well rested so that during the day they're fresh and they're on top of what they need to be doing to make that person's life, you know, as wonderful as possible. So I'm going to kind of switch gears to how this all starts up. Well, it starts up with a phone call, but typically, even though we're non-medical, it starts off with just having a comprehensive overview, assessment, and just making sure that we understand what's needed. So we send in RNs to be able to go in, do an assessment that really covers physical and mental, does a medical history, make sure that we do skin condition checks, we do fall risk assessments, we make sure that there's a home safety checklist. We want to make sure that everything in the home is safe, not just for the client, but also for our caregivers, our employees that we're putting into the home. So it's a very comprehensive kickoff, and it really helps to determine whether we're the right fit or not. If someone's level of care is beyond what we can provide for them, it gives us that red flag to be able to then point the person in the direction of the proper people that can help. But it also gives kind of an overview. We take it a step a little bit further. In my company, Comfort Care, we do two things. One is we do a social history questionnaire. Because anybody can ask you about your medical history, anybody can ask you about these questions that are typically asked to these folks over and over and over again. And it gets a little annoying at some point, and people usually are resistant to it. But when we break out our social history questionnaire, that's when we get to find out what people's likes and dislikes are. Dislikes are sometimes more important than the likes, but because we want to make sure that we're finding ways to connect. We want to know favorite music. We'd like to know about their family. We want to know about, were they in the military? What are their favorite sports? What are the ways that we're going to be able to connect with them? So besides getting, the checklist of everything that's happened to them medically, we want to know them personally. Because the only way that someone's going to feel comfortable having us maybe help them take a shower, get dressed, is if we've made a personal, intimate connection with somebody that they're going to trust us. So that's one thing that we use as a social history questionnaire. The other thing is we do something called a day in the life, which means that we want to make sure that we understand a day in the life of Michelle. So if Michelle was my client and I was going in to help her, I want to know at 9:30 what happens when I arrive. So it just makes it so that that person is not dictating what it is every day. You're rolling into someone's life, and that's really important. I think home care helps people stay in the life that they've had, and it's something that we want to do to make it possible for people to feel comfortable aging in place. So what are some of the other benefits? Some of you are going to be looking at it like, that all sounds well and good and lovely, but let's just get down to the nitty-gritty. What are some of the benefits of staying at home and having a care agency, a home care agency, oversee it? Well, basically, we're going to oversee the care and the quality, where the agency is going to be billing for hours worked for the caregivers, which then will go and we assume the liability, we assume all the tax implications in making sure that they're paid, and those types of things may not seem like it's a big deal, and a lot of people will go out and hire privately, but once somebody falls in someone's walkway, and then they're coming after the family to be able to be compensated for that, it becomes a big deal. Another piece is that we do full background checks on folks. We want to make sure that their driving record is safe if they're driving around. We want to make sure that they are not wanted in multiple states. We go way beyond the quarry. Most agencies do, because not everything just happens in Massachusetts. People move around, and we have to make sure that they're safe and we know their full background. Drug testing, that's something that not every maybe home care agency will do. We do it at orientation, and it doesn't matter what the state might say. We have zero tolerance for any drugs. So those are some of the pieces that are benefits, just the tax, the liability, making sure that the payroll is done well, and also the long-term care insurance. So if anybody has ever worked and dealt with long-term care insurance, you've usually spent a lot of time paying into it, And guess what? They don't necessarily want to give you all that you're owed and you deserve. Am I right? This is just an insurance thing maybe. But the idea is that we're doing the full submissions of long-term care insurance so that you're able to get the maximum amount that you've put into it. Because it is something that obviously was well thought out and should, the submission should be done well. So, okay, now, how do you find people like me? How do you find people that own these home care agencies? Well, one of the best ways that you can find and locate someone you think is a good match and a best fit for you or your loved one is really recommendations from friends. You know, you can go on and you can Google, but let's just face it, what do people usually put in reviews? Good reviews or bad reviews? The bad reviews, you know, so you don't always hear the good things. So recommendations from friends, talking to the town's Council on Aging, from other local senior care providers, either rehabs, hospitals, working with adult day programs, asking people that work with other people in the sort of continuum of care is a really good place to go. And certainly the Area Agency on Aging, Minuteman Senior Services would be the one that would be associated with Concord. I did put Google search last because that's probably my least favorite of them. Then you have to figure out, okay, well now I've located a few people, I have a couple of recommendations, what am I going to ask? So here are some key questions I think to be able to ask is, will the same person be providing care? What happens if the caregiver cancels and doesn't show up as scheduled? What is your hiring process? You want to ask about the hiring process. You want to find out how they recruit and train caregivers. You want to find out if they're insured. You want to make sure that they're doing background checks. And how do they develop a plan? How do they kick off? How are they going to make sure that all of the needs are being met? And then what happens if I don't feel a connection with a caregiver? Are they just going to say, well, I'm sorry, that's all we have? You know, you want to really think outside the box. And some tips when choosing the care agency is to understand what's covered in the contract and read it carefully. You don't want to be a part of something that you potentially can't move away from. And make your expectations very clear right up front. And be very honest. Sometimes people are maybe ashamed or embarrassed or just unsure of the condition of somebody. Be as honest as possible. That's the best way it's going to work from the get-go, is if you're honest about someone's condition, whether it be mental or whether it be physical, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to really find, what's going to be suitable for that person. And based upon that, then figure out if that agency can then meet your needs. And get to know the administration of the agency and learn who your contact person is going to be. You have many different sizes of home care agencies. And I think it's really important to know who the go-to person is there so that you're always able to get an answer and an answer quickly. I think that's critical. So once you've done your homework, once you've been able to locate a few options, and then narrow it down, ask the questions, meet with people, get the feeling and the vibe, and what's going to be the best fit, then what are going to be the best transitions once you actually start would be to give as much information as you can. What quirks about the home? What is the schedule? What are food preferences? What are the other habits that they might have that someone should be aware of? Give it time and be open-minded. And encourage them to be able to ask questions and to ask for a different fit if it's not the right fit for the person. So that's pretty much what I have for home care. I hope that's helpful, and I know that one of the handouts that's going to be given at the end has just a quick page-and-a-half description of how to search for a family member, because there is a lot to navigate. So hopefully you'll have this takeaway that will enable you to make some good decisions. So thank you.
So hello, I'm Beth Quinn. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing, actually for Deaconess Abundant Life Communities, which is the parent organization that runs Newbury Court right here in Concord. And Jane will be speaking as well, is the Director of Sales and Marketing here at Newbury Court, our Newbury Court campus. There are, as you all probably are aware, tons of different residential living options for seniors. It seems, especially these days, they're popping up on every block and every corner, and it can be confusing to understand which one might be right for me. You know, is it the right type of people? Is it the right kind of living environment I would want? You know, what are my needs? So we thought we would just kind of go through some of the differences. So I think the term assisted living is thrown around a lot. A lot of people say, oh, I'm moving to assisted living, my mom is moving to assisted living, my sister, whoever it might be. But there are a lot of different models out there that are not necessarily assisted living. Newburyport, for example, is not considered, it's considered independent living. So we wanted to just run through a little bit what a traditional assisted living might look like. Typically, folks are moving to a traditional assisted living when they probably need some care. It's probably sort of a care-driven decision where they've had some event, or they're just finding that, maybe even with the assistance of home care, it's just been challenging to stay at home. Typically, an assisted living is a licensed facility. They're licensed by the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. Most of the time it's a rental model, meaning you're going to pay a monthly fee to live there, and within that monthly fee some care will be provided, typically an hour a day, or it varies again depending on which community you're at. It will typically include your maintenance and your housekeeping, 3 meals per day typically, because you're probably at a point where you're not really getting out shopping and making your own meals and things like that. There are also tons of scheduled activities and programs, socialization, things to keep folks physically active. Typically, if folks are living in assisted living and need additional care, as we heard from Jen, oftentimes additional care beyond what's just provided at the assisted living can be brought in, and obviously there's an additional fee for that. The living situation in assisted living, it usually is a smaller private 1-bedroom or studio. There are some facilities that have 2 bedrooms. I can't believe I'm using the word facility. That's on our no-no list. It's a community that typically we don't like to think of these places as a facility. It's really more of a community where you're going to live. I heard myself saying it. So typically they're not going to be sprawling large apartments, but usually they're pretty nice, and you find, especially if you're not doing a lot of meal prep and things like that, they can be quite comfortable. Most of the time assisted living is a standalone, but not always. Sometimes they're part of a bigger community, so there might be a continuum of care where you'd move from one part of the community to assisted living and to a skilled nursing, like a nursing home. But many of the assisted livings are individual buildings that don't have that continuum. So you sort of know going there, you hope that you'll live out your life there, but if there are more long-term needs needed, or you need rehab or something like that, very often you're going to relocate to an area, whether it's a skilled nursing or rehab community. And then, the next slide, Jane's going to talk to you a little bit about the difference with independent living.
Okay, so independent living, retirement communities, typically they're entrance fee based, where you pay a one-time entrance fee that in general is 90% refundable. And, but some independent living communities have a monthly rental option, so there are a couple of different scenarios. Residents move in when they're healthy and active, because the whole goal is to move in when you can engage in the community, become part of the community, and feel comfortable and meet people, so that if and when you do need additional services, you've already established a sense of community. Monthly fee typically covers 1 meal a day in the dining room, lunch or dinner, weekly housekeeping, maintenance, parking, and emergency calls. Additional care such as companions, medication management typically are an extra fee. Aging in place, most communities have a continuum of care, so that, again, if and when your needs change, that you do have other options. Oftentimes, there's skilled nursing attached and rehab, and there's also a memory care, memory support neighborhood as well. Some of the amenities that you can find in an independent living community. A fitness center and pool, art studio, pottery studio, fine dining and casual dining options, cultural programs, social events, both on campus and off campus, outdoor walking paths, transportation, a rehabilitation department with occupational and physical therapy as well. 24-hour concierge and 24-hour emergency response.
Actually, that's Fayad, our Director of Transportation, who's wonderful. He gets all the residents, their scheduled transportation. Most communities have that as well, where you have set times where they'll take a whole group of people to the grocery store or on different trips. But you also can get individual rides as well to medical appointments or other appointments in town or errands. So overall, regardless of whether you're living in an assisted living or an independent or some continued care community, there are obviously really quite a few benefits to living in that type of environment. And I agree, home is wonderful and it can be a wonderful place and it's very hard to give up. But isolation can be, as we've heard over and over, really difficult on folks. Being a sense of community, it's almost like some people call it silver dormitory. It's sort of like going back to college and living in that setting again, where you are involved with different friends, and there's different clubs and committees that you can be a part of. So that sense of belonging, social interaction is really important. And then, there's a lot of stress that goes along with home ownership, and that can put a real burden on you and your loved ones. Just to, a tree goes down in the yard, or there's a lot of snow one year and having to keep shoveling out, and all of that stress goes away when you live in a community. All of that is taken care of for you. In fact, usually we find for a snowstorm, there's always a couple residents sitting right up front, the front door, watching the guys out there with the snow blower and thinking, oh, I'm so glad, this is great, I'm so glad I came here. It tends to really keep people's health and well-being in better shape. The falls are reduced because of the environment. Typically, one floor living with accessible showers and very kind of easy to manage kitchen and things like that can really help with that as well. And what Jane and I always are saying, and it's absolutely true, whether you believe us or not, you can go up to any resident in our community, and I think in any great community, that will say, probably even the ones that fought us the hardest about coming in the first place, and they'll say they wish they moved sooner, and that's the best thing they've ever done, because they really just find such a sense of home and community where they're living. So this is one of our favorite events every year. So this is a great example of social interaction. We have a lobster bake every August, and we invite outside guests as well as all our residents, and they get right into that lobster, as you can see, with their bibs going. And there's some folks that's sitting at that table that have lived at Newbury Court since, I think, maybe since its opening in 1995. And a couple there that have just moved in recently. So it's nice, really people get to know so many other folks and have a good time.
I don't know how to choose, and the good thing is that you don't have to, like Jen said. We're not here to say, no, pick me. We're really here to say, these are all your options, and they can intertwine. Before we get to your questions, and I'm sure you have them, we have a little story here that really kind of exemplifies how this all ties together. And although this is a fake story, it's also a real story for many, many people that we know. And I will say that, again, I work at the CESI Center that Michelle talked about, and we do have residents that live at Newbury Court also come to our center for the day. So there's just another real-life example of how this intertwines. So here's your little story. Mrs. and Mr. Smith live at Newbury Court. They have been there for several years and have lived in the greater community for decades before. The Smiths would attend programming at the Concord COA together until Mr. Smith seemed less engaged and could not recall the programs later in the evening after dinner. Mr. Smith was diagnosed with dementia about 6 months ago, and after speaking with the COA staff, they were connected with Cooperative Elder Services. He now attends CESI 3 days a week, and Mrs. Smith runs errands, goes to the COA, and meets with her friends in Newbury Court for different events, like the lobster. Unfortunately, Mrs. Smith experienced a fall recently and needs to recover in Rivercrest within Newbury Court for rehab. The Smiths are then referred to Come for Care, so that on the days Mr. Smith is not with Ceci, he has home care services. Even after returning to her apartment, Mrs. Smith will need additional supports for the time being, and Come for Care works with the Smiths to add extra days of home care services. So as you can see, there is a case of a couple using all of the services that we talked about today. So we hope that this provides you with a clear idea of how each one of these organizations can assist you through the stages of aging. And now we'd like to open this up to anyone in the audience who may have questions for our presenters. And I can come around with the microphone. Anybody? Yeah, great.
I don't know that I have a microphone.
Okay. You know, just for the camera, was that helpful? Is that? There we go.
Thank you, Ralphie. This is for Beth and Jade. Do you have AFC beds or PACE at Newbury Court?
Not at Newbury Court, but one of our other communities, I believe in Waltham, the Leland Home does. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Here, you guys can use this too. All right, here we go.
I don't know that I need
I feel like the price is right.
This is for Michelle. Is the adult day health program, is it an all day? Can people come for part of the day? And how is it paid for?
That's a great question. We are flexible in terms of the day. We are open 8 to 4. Most people join us somewhere between 9 and 3. We certainly have people who come in for half of the day, part of the day if they need to. Again, we're there to be flexible both in terms of the programming during the day, but also we understand flexibility and individual needs and family needs. And in terms of payment, a variety of ways, long-term care insurance, mass health, different types of insurance, private pay. We work with people to really understand what their particular needs are and different ways that we can get loved ones in the door.
Any other questions?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for your presentation. It's really terrific, and I love the example of tying it all together, even though I live it in my industry too. But I just wondered, what do you find most challenging? And I'll just throw that out to anybody in terms of your day-to-day work. What are the biggest challenges you see maybe today versus 3 years ago?
I can speak to that a little bit. And I don't want this to come across negatively, but I think this can be constructive, maybe, for the audience. Families. Families are a big challenge, and I think I spoke to it a little bit when I was up at the podium, and I think it's being honest and being aware of where someone is mentally and physically, and being able to understand that being honest and upfront about it is going to be the best way to be, because in order to meet the challenges that that person is facing, you need to have that, I think, that very realistic, upfront conversation. Otherwise, you're not going to necessarily be starting off on the right foot. And I think I see people here in the industry, in the audience, all nodding their heads, so I think I got that partially right. And it's very difficult it's certainly difficult to admit that things are not the way they used to be, that people are compromised in different ways, and it's very difficult to look at a situation and see it for what it actually is as a family member. There might be guilt associated with it. There might be all different emotions that play into it. So I think that families being able to grasp the reality of a situation, and maybe not always walking away from a meeting understanding fully what's been shared. I think the chaos sometimes and how scared you can be about facing some of these challenges then presents in one ear and out the other, not on purpose, not being purposeful about just not wanting to hear it. It's just sometimes very hard to hear it because it's not something that you want to hear or you're overwhelmed. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we all face in this continuum of care is, you know, really seeing something for what it is. And if we can do that, and if we can all be a part of that, it will help move the person and the support that they need in the right direction.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
What's that too, please?
Go ahead. I probably know what Jane's going to say now. I think it's probably the biggest challenge, but also often brings the most joy in our job, and part of the reason we love it is, and it's somewhat similar, is that, you know, we're dealing with folks making probably the hardest move of their life. You know, you went off to college and you decided, you know, got married and went live somewhere, and it was all these kind of happy events. And people don't always think about moving to a residential community in their, you know, later years as exciting an experience. And we'd like to try to make it, you know, be more comfortable for them. And I think it's hard for us to get that message across to people that this really is a positive thing, and it's actually not taking away independence, it's giving you independence to live the way you want to in a somewhat supportive environment that you know, helps you along the way. So, you know, I think it's very rewarding. I always say the best when I've been asked, what's your favorite part of the job? My favorite part of the job is when I've worked with someone, sometimes for a couple of years before they've really made the decision and actually moved in. And maybe, you know, even in the beginning, they're still not sure they did the right thing. And then maybe a year later, 6 months later, I just see them from afar, whether they're participating in a fitness class or they're at the lobster bakes, laughing with friends or watching a musical program, and can see that they're really settled in and enjoying their life. That's the best moment for me. It's what gets me up every day for sure. So.
I agree with Beth that oftentimes the challenges are also the joys of this role, but I think one of the things that's really tough for people to understand is that it really is a process. It's not a decision that you make overnight, and helping people to understand that it's okay for it to take time. Visiting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, whatever it is you need to do to figure out if this is the right move for you. And we do a lot to help people with that process, and we will offer to folks, come on in and have lunch with a resident, talk to residents and see what it's like. We offer a program where 3 of our current residents facilitate a discussion group with people who are thinking about coming. So we have events. We have events that are practically focused. We have events that are fun. We even have a sleep-on-it option, so you can come and stay overnight and have a day of programming suited to your interests. So there's a lot of ways that we help people to discover if this is the right decision for them, and to encourage them to not feel badly if they're calling us 3 and 4 times, because it's important. So.
I wondered about the Concord Care, what towns you cover.
So our office is in Westford itself, because that's where I currently live, so it's a little bit easier to get to the office. But we cover 18 towns around Westford, but primarily, you know, Westford, Chelmsford, Concord, Carlisle, Bedford, where I grew up, Acton, Boxborough, Barica, did I say Littleton? If I did, sorry. Littleton, Groton, Chelmsford, Lowell, so kind of that whole area. Welcome.
Any other questions? How many cookies are left? Plenty. There are plenty of cookies. No panicking.
Take some home.
All right, thank you guys so much for coming. We really appreciate it.